Welcome back to Good Living, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you now a Rotarian and founder of an amazing aid organisation, Shelterbox, Mr. Tom Henderson, all the way from Cornwall in the UK. Thank you for joining me, Tom.
Pleasure, good morning.
How are you doing?
Oh, tired. I just come in from China yesterday, so a busy time in China, but I'm here enjoying the country. It's great. Great
to have you here in New Zealand. You would have missed all the big news with your new Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, I need a couple of days to talk about that. But yeah, it's quite... In fact, I caught it on your show yesterday morning. When you're travelling, you don't pick up the news. So yeah, it's interesting times for us in UK.
Yeah, and I guess once you get back, you'll be able to immerse yourself back into that and what that means for the country. Now, tell us about Shelterbox, because this is a fantastic organisation that more New Zealanders need to be aware of, don't they?
Well, our friends, our Kiwi friends, are aware of it, but we're pushing the thing as much as we can. It's very simple context. The answer's in the name, Shelterbox. It's a box about the size of 2 suitcases, and in that box we put disaster relief material. In a disaster, in an earthquake, I was in Haiti 6 weeks ago, for example, and we deliver this box, and it's actually got a family tent in it for 10 people, water purification, some pots and pans, a cooking stove, some stuff for the children. But so exactly what you would need for a family after they lost everything in a disaster. So the clue's in the name, Shelterbox. It's shelter in a box.
And everything is there for them?
Everything you can get into a box that weighs 50 kilos and it's about the size of 2 suitcases, because we do have to transport these things around the world. That's
right, and that's half of it, isn't it? The logistics side of it. So how did Shelterbox get started for you, Tom? What was it that made you think about this?
Well, it's very much a programme like this. I was watching the news one evening in my home 10 years ago, and I saw a truck arrive in the world somewhere and people throwing loaves of bread on the floor. And that really upset me, and I thought, well, these people have lost everything. You know, why should these people lose their dignity as well as everything else? Because just handing the bread out would have been quite dignified. Throw it on the floor wasn't. And that's the thing that upset me. So I didn't plan Shelterbox. It wasn't a conceived idea. And I started work on the project within an hour of seeing that project. So it was a knee-jerk reaction to something I saw, and here we are 10 years later operating on the world stage. So
it's been going now for 10 years.
Correct.
And I mean, the Shelterbox is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because of course, sadly, it's needed when people are in crisis mode, but then it turns itself over with being such a fantastic product. 10 years now, could you have imagined that it would have grown so much?
Well, the answer is yes. I mean, my wife will tell you I'm criminally optimistic in everything I do, and even that very day I had pictures in my mind's eye of tented villages all over the world. So I have to say yes, but what I'm astonished at is the speed of the growth, but importantly, the like-minded people that saw it for what it was and now what it is, and the tens of thousands of people that have engaged with our organisation around the world, particularly through our Rotary organisation.
That's been a big part, isn't it?
It's huge. I mean, without our Rotary friends around the world, and your viewers won't know perhaps that 1.2 million Rotarians, 32,000 Rotary Clubs in 200 countries. So I tell people I've got 32,000 offices around the world.
That's right.
And that's actually, I said last night at the meeting that it's the cement that binds Shelterbox together. So without our Rotary friends, we couldn't do what we do.
So how did you decide what products exactly that were going to go in the Shelterbox? Was that a hard process, getting everybody on board and supporting?
No, it's very simple. Again, if you gave 10 people a piece of paper and said, what would you need in a disaster, and you've got a box this big, people will come up with the same thing. So that's not the smart bit. It's if you like, pretty obvious. A tent, some water purification, some tools, some stuff for the children, cooking pots and pans. It's really basic stuff that most people would think about. That was the actual easy bit. The difficulty that we found is that it's actually getting this to the point of delivery. For example, Haiti. I was there 6 weeks ago. A city of 3 million people. No port. There's only one port in the country, one airport which had been devastated. So the hardest part of our job as we go around the world is actually the delivery process.
And how does that work?
It's very simple. As any logistics chain works, it's finding the right airplane at the right time. But the real work is actually, the real hard work is done on the ground, in the field, so to speak. And just
once it's landed?
Once it's landed. To put this in context, in 10 short years we've worked in 75 countries around the world.
Goodness.
Last year alone, as we grow, 20 countries in the last 12 months. So it's really a question of finding the right airplane to get into the right place. Sometimes the airport can be 300 miles away from the disaster. And then we put teams of people on the ground, what we call our Shelterbox response teams, that we recruit and train all over the world. And they actually go in with our equipment and deliver it. Again, remembering that You know, we've worked in the mountains of Nepal in winter. To paraphrase a song, the deserts of Sudan, where I was about 6 months ago. So all those logistic things that you need on the ground, and that's the real challenge, because remember, and Haiti is a good example, there's no roads, there's no water, there's no power, there's no infrastructure. So that is a real challenge, and we've used canoes down rivers, we've used mule trains going up mountains.
Oh my goodness.
So that's the real challenge, and it's probably the thing that stands us apart, that if you like, that focus, that drive to make things happen as quickly as we can.
And do you generally go to these devastated
No, I
areas?
don't. I've in another life, I'm an ex-search and rescue guy from the British Navy, and I've travelled the world and I've seen many of these things. I have been on some deployments, but not as an SRT, but as in my role as the CEO of the organisation, to look back from the sharp end to make sure our organisation's working. But having said that, in the last 12 months I've been into Niger in Central Africa. I was in Haiti 6 weeks ago, and I was in Swaziland about a year ago. So whilst I don't physically go the front end, I do go to these places to make sure that things are going as well as they can.
Yeah, and that must make a huge difference to the organisation as well. And we've got a headquarters now here in New Zealand, down south.
We have, and the 11 countries around the world that we have, as we call affiliates, it's rather a grand name. Yeah, we got headquarters here in Mosgiel, and what typically happens in a country, one of our Rotary Clubs, our friends will say, look, we'll take this and drive it forward in New Zealand for you. And that we then got representatives throughout New Zealand that go out and give talks and tell the world what we do. So it's the usual sales pitch, just getting out there by attrition, and shows like yours, letting people know and check us out on the website, see what we do. So
and it has a huge flow-on effect from there. And Tom, I know you didn't want to mention this, but you've done very well, met Entrepreneur of the Year last year in the UK, and just been awarded an OBE. You must be thrilled.
Yeah, well, I am, of course. You know, it's a reflection of where we are. I mean, it's rather bizarre. You know, you move from being amongst the rubble in Haiti, and then 6 weeks later being in Buckingham Palace with the Queen of England, and that's one of the real joys for me. This kind of various places that this project takes me to. So yeah, very pleased, very proud personally. But again, it's a reflection on where we are with Shelterbox and of the work that all our people do around the world, not least our Kiwi friends.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Tom, and congratulations. The work that you're doing is amazing. Do have a look at the website. We'll have those details for you now. It is www.shelterbox.org. So it is very easy to remember. You can find out all about the work that they do, how you can become involved, donations, everything that you need to know about what Tom has just been talking about.